during a power outage. I came home early, unaware that my wife didn't realize I was back. In the darkness, I overheard her talking to our neighbor, Eduardo. She was discussing a plan to kill me and collect the life insurance, mentioning how once the payout came through next month, they could finally be together. They even clinked their wine glasses, toasting to my demise. I silently slipped away and came back later with a flashlight, acting surprised to find them together. 2 weeks later, I began receiving increasingly urgent voice messages from her. Ellie and I had been together for 8 years, married for 6. We met at a friend's New Year's party, back when social gatherings like that were common before things changed. Our relationship had its ups and downs, like any long-term one, but I thought that was just a normal phase. Lately, there had been rolling blackouts in our neighborhood due to maintenance on the grid. It wasn't usually a big deal, just a couple of hours without power, but last month, Ellie kept bringing up life insurance, asking if we should increase my policy. With money tight and things needing repairs around the house, I signed the papers to raise the coverage to $500,000, thinking it made sense. Eduardo moved in next door a year ago after his divorce. He seemed like an all-right guy, and he started coming over to borrow tools or asking for help with his lawnmower. In hindsight, I realized some of those fixes probably didn't need my help, but I went along with it. Then Ellie started inviting him over for dinner, saying she felt bad for him being alone. She'd put in a lot more effort for those dinners, getting all dressed up more than she ever did for just us. But I ignored it, figuring it was just kindness. Last Tuesday, another blackout was scheduled for 6 p.m. I had planned to meet a friend, but he canceled, so I decided to head home early. My phone was almost dead, so I didn't text Ellie. I arrived around 5:30, just as a power cut out, and of course, the garage door opener was broken. I parked on the street and used the side door. The house was already dark, but I could hear voices in the kitchen. Ellie was laughing, but it wasn't her normal laugh. It was that high-pitched, fake one she uses when trying to impress someone. Then I heard Eduardo's voice too. I'm not a jealous person, but something felt off, so I stayed quiet and listened from the hallway, where they couldn't see me. That's when I heard Ellie talking about the plan. She said it had to look like an accident, and Eduardo asked if she was sure about the timing. Then Ellie said clear as day, once the insurance pays out for his accident next month, you and I can finally be together. They clinked their glasses, toasting to my death. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind just went blank. My body was hot and cold at once. But instead of barging in and confronting them, I quietly stepped back and went outside. I sat in my car for about 20 minutes, trying to process it all. The woman I'd been married to for 6 years was planning to kill me for money, with our neighbor involved. I'm not the smartest guy, but I knew making a scene right then would only tip them off, so I drove around aimlessly for a while. Around 7 p.m., I stopped at a convenience store to pick up flashlights, snacks, and water, stuff to prepare for the blackout. When I got home, I made sure to make a lot of noise coming in, calling out Ellie's name like everything was normal. She responded with her voice all high and strange, and when I walked into the kitchen, there they were, 2 wine glasses on the table. Eduardo looked guilty, and Ellie had that fake surprise on her face, asking why I was home early. I played dumb and said my plans had canceled. I handed them each a flashlight and acted like it was no big deal. Eduardo tried to make an excuse to leave, saying he was just checking if we had power. I even offered him a beer, watching him squirm as he quickly declined, and said he should go. The next 2 hours were the strangest of my life. I sat there with Ellie, making small talk by candlelight, all the while knowing she was planning my death. She kept checking her phone, texting someone, probably Eduardo. She'd even put on the perfume I'd always compliment her on and changed into that blue top that I liked, though I'd never seen her wear it for me. It was for him, not for me. Over the following days, I started paying closer attention to her. Ellie had been working late a lot, and her phone now had a passcode. She kept asking weird questions about my schedule, especially about my upcoming trip with my brothers. She was acting unusually nice one moment, then distant the next. Classic suspicious behavior. Then I found her browser history. She'd been searching for undetectable poisons, ways to make a death look like an accident, and how long it typically took for life insurance payouts. It was painfully obvious, like watching a kid try to hide candy they'd stolen. I also discovered that she and Eduardo had been messaging on some encrypted chat app. I couldn't see the content of the messages, but the notifications showed they were talking constantly. Meanwhile, Ellie barely spoke to me, except to ask about my trip. Then last weekend, I accidentally knocked over a purse, and a small bottle fell out. It definitely wasn't anything I recognized, not medicine, not perfume. It had no label. She snatched it up so fast and got really defensive when I asked about it, claiming it was just vitamins, but I could see the panic in her eyes. The final straw came yesterday when I overheard her on the phone again. I'm not sure who she was talking to, but it didn't sound good. Now, I know what she's planning, and I'm not going to let it happen. She thought I was in the shower, but I had just turned on the water and slipped out to grab something from the bedroom. I overheard her talking to someone, most likely Eduardo, saying it had to look natural and that they needed to stick to a timeline. Then I caught a mention of a fishing trip being the perfect cover, because accidents are common out there. So here I am, 6 years married, and my wife is plotting to kill me for the insurance money so she can run off with the neighbor. And they're not even trying to be discreet about it. I've been living on edge, watching everything I eat or drink, keeping one eye open at all times. I haven't told anyone about this, though, because honestly, it sounds insane. Who would believe something like that? Plus, part of me still can't wrap my head around it. The woman I've shared a life with for 8 years actually wants me dead. I'm still processing it. Here's my plan. I'm backing up every piece of evidence I can find. Screenshots of her search history, photos of that strange bottle, recordings of any suspicious conversations. I've already moved most of our savings into an account she can't touch. I also contacted the bank and claimed I suspected fraud on our joint account, which is entirely untrue. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with a lawyer to figure out my options. Quietly, I've started recording everything in our house. The small cameras I ordered from Amazon arrived today, and she has no idea they're there. I'm pretending everything's fine while I gather evidence. The thing is, I could just confront her or leave, but after all these years together, after seeing how coldly she planned this, I can't just walk away. I want her to face the full consequences for what she's done. And Eduardo, too. Revenge may not be the healthiest option, but I'm not going to let them get away with this. I'll make them regret ever thinking I was someone they could manipulate. I'll update you all when I have more to share. But for now, I'm playing along with their little game while I set my own trap. Update. Wow, my last post really blew up. Thanks for all the awards and advice. Here's the update for those asking. The last couple of weeks have been the strangest of my life. Walking around my own home, knowing my wife wants me dead, changes everything. It feels like driving a car with bad brakes, just waiting for crash. But I've kept my cool, acted normal, even had sex with Ellie twice, though it was complicated. She seemed distracted, probably thinking about Eduardo or how she could poison me. I met with the lawyer I mentioned. He's an older guy, messy office, and a couple divorces behind him. So perfect for my situation. He gave me great advice. Document everything, protect myself financially, and gather as much evidence as possible. Just hearing a professional confirm I'm not crazy was more reassuring than I expected. As for the money, I had around 16 grand in our joint savings, which isn't much, but it's all we had after buying a house and dealing with that basement flood last year. I couldn't just empty the account, though. It'd be too obvious. So I came up with a plan. I told Ellie I had a gambling problem. Yeah, it sounds crazy, but hear me out. I confessed that I'd been gambling online for months and lost a couple grand. Told her I needed help and was going to join a support group. I even showed her some fake betting history I made using Photoshop. She totally bought it and did that whole supportive thing, rubbing my back and saying we'd get through it together. Oscar worthy, considering she's planning my murder. The beauty of the gambling story is that it explains any weird money moves I make. I moved most of our savings into a new account, leaving just enough in the joint account to avoid suspicion. Told her it was to protect me from myself. I also suggested we have separate accounts for a while, which she liked, thinking it'd be even more convenient when I'm gone. Next, I needed to create some tension between Ellie and Eduardo. A marriage is like a machine, complicated, but with separate moving parts that can be messed with. I noticed Eduardo got super jealous whenever Ellie talked to other men. At a neighbor's cookout last weekend, I saw how his face changed when she was chatting with a host, so I started casually bringing up other guys when talking to her. That guy for her office texted me asking about some work stuff. Just innocent comments, but always when I knew Eduardo might overhear. I also accidentally sent him a text meant for Ellie saying how great she looked in an outfit she wore to meet a friend after work. The meeting never happened, but I deleted it right after with a quick sorry, wrong person. The damage was done, though. He responded with a terse empty, but I could practically hear his suspicion. For Ellie, I started planting doubts about Eduardo's finances. I casually mentioned I heard his business was struggling and that he was behind on his HOA payments, which I made up, just little breadcrumbs of doubt. Watching them squirm has been strangely satisfying. I'm not usually like this, but knowing they want to kill me changes the rules. The cameras I set up caught some interesting conversations. They're still planning the accident on my fishing trip, but now there's noticeable tension. In one video, Ellie even asked Eduardo about some woman who's been commenting on his social media. It's getting messy, and I'm here for it. I've been keeping an eye on everything, and things have gotten pretty tense between Ellie and Eduardo. There's been a lot of back and forth, and it's clear that Eduardo thinks he's entitled to more money than Ellie is willing to give him. It's almost like watching a soap opera unfold. I've been collecting evidence. Screenshots, recordings, the works, and building my case slowly but surely. For example, I recorded myself opening this unmarked bottle from Ellie's purse. Used gloves and everything, and it turned out to be some kind of powder. I sent a sample to a testing service, and the results should be back soon. In the meantime, I've been setting up a pattern of accidents to make Ellie and Eduardo nervous. I mentioned to Ellie that I almost fell down the stairs while carrying laundry, and later told her I scratched my arm while swerving to avoid a cat. I made sure these little incidents were just enough to make them think I could die any minute. Last week, I stirred up some chaos by discovering some suspicious charges on our credit card. I made a big deal out of it, called the bank, and had our cards canceled while Ellie was home. She freaked out over the accounts being frozen, and I could see her texting Eduardo frantically. She's definitely not good at hiding stress when her credit cards are down for a few days. I've also been casually spreading some gossip. I mentioned to our neighbor, who happens to be close friends with Eduardo's ex-wife, that I was considering real estate investments and had heard Eduardo might have some advice. Dropped a line about how we've been seeing a lot of him lately, especially when I'm not around. Ellie's reaction said it all. She looked nervous, and I knew the word would get around quickly. But this whole thing isn't just about playing mind games. I'm also working on creating a safety net for myself, while pushing them to make mistakes. On Wednesday, I took an unannounced day off and parked down the street, watching our house. Sure enough, Eduardo showed up an hour after I would normally have left and stayed for 3 hours. I got all on camera. When I checked the footage later, they were talking about their timeline again. Eduardo was clearly stressed, and Ellie reassured him everything would be fine once they took care of things next month. Here's where it gets really interesting. I decided to see how far they were willing to go. So I told Ellie I was canceling a fishing trip next month because my brother broke his ankle. He didn't, of course, but I wanted to see her reaction. She actually tried to convince me to go alone. Suddenly, she cares about me getting me time when she's been complaining about my fishing trips for years? Something's off there. I've also noticed Ellie's been slipping up. She left her phone unlocked on the counter yesterday, and I had a chance to look through it. Found a text to Eduardo about needing a new plan and being concerned about the money. I also discovered receipts for some shady online purchases, a new untraceable phone, and a keylogger. Looks like she's trying to spy on me too, but she's sloppy. Last night, I pulled my biggest move yet. I disappeared for 48 hours. Didn't tell Ellie where I was. Didn't answer my phone, just vanished. Stayed in a motel 2 towns over, used cash, kept my phone off. When I came back, Ellie was in a full-on panic. She called Eduardo 6 hours after I should have been home, and he showed up to search the house. They called hospitals and checked my social media, but it was clear they weren't concerned for my well-being. They were just afraid I might be dead, and their plan would be ruined. When I came back, I played it cool, saying I just needed some time to clear my head and went camping by myself. The look on her face was priceless, relief, annoyance, and confusion all mixed together. She tried to act angry, but couldn't hide her worry. Later that night, I overheard her on the phone in the bathroom, whispering to Eduardo about getting suspicious and needing to move quickly. They're getting careless and desperate, making more and more mistakes. Now, I've pretty much secured our finances and gathered solid evidence of their plans. I've also made them increasingly paranoid and sloppy, but I'm not done yet. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with Eduardo for beers. Yeah, you read that right. I call him up and suggested we hang out. We'll see how this plays out. Oh, and I also canceled the life insurance policy they were excited about. The paperwork was finalized yesterday, and Ellie doesn't know yet. When she finds out, it's going to be something. I had a feeling something wasn't right, so I decided to push things a little further. Eduardo was always around, and I knew I needed to get more out of him. My plan was to get him drunk and see what I could extract from him, especially about Ellie and her other friends. The final piece of the puzzle was the fishing trip. I was still going, but not the way they expected. Once I had more to share, I'd update. But for those of you concerned about my safety, there's no need. I lock my door at night, prepare my own meals, and a friend checks in with me daily. These two aren't masterminds. They're just a bored housewife and a desperate guy who think they can outsmart me. Okay, so here's the update. A lot of you have been asking if I'm still alive. Spoiler, I am, and things have taken an interesting turn. Hold on, this will be a long one. So, the beer with Eduardo I mentioned, it went better than I could have hoped. We met at a dive bar downtown. Sticky floors, cheap pitchers of beer. I told Ellie I was meeting some guys from my gambling support group. She encouraged me to go, probably hoping I'd drive into a tree on the way home. Anyway, Eduardo can't handle his alcohol. 3 beers in, and he was slurring, going on about his divorce, money issues, and his complicated life. I just played it cool, nodding and buying more drinks. By beer 5, I casually asked if he knew why Ellie had been acting stressed lately. That's when things got interesting. Eduardo started rambling about how plans can change and how people aren't always who they say they are. Then he dropped a bomb. Ellie had been talking to her ex recently, keeping her options open. He was clearly pissed and felt like he'd been played. I acted surprised, asked a few more questions, and made sure to record the whole thing on my phone. Then I casually mentioned the life insurance policy, saying I was thinking about canceling it because the premiums were too high due to my gambling problems. His face went from calm to shocked in an instant. He started rambling about how important life insurance is and how I shouldn't cancel it. Then he immediately changed the subject. Amateur hour. When I got home that night, Ellie was still awake, asking how my night went. I told her it was great, then mentioned that I ran into Eduardo at the bar. I said he was upset about some woman he's been seeing who's playing games. The look on her face was priceless. It was like she realized the jig was up. The next morning, I got an email saying that the life insurance policy had been canceled. I left the email open on my laptop when I went to shower. When I came back, Ellie was making breakfast, looking a little nervous, asking if everything was okay, and muttering something about a headache. Sure, Jan. Later that same day, I discovered some fraudulent activity on our joint account. I called the bank while Ellie was right there, making a big deal about how someone must have stolen our information. The account got frozen, pending an investigation. Ellie nearly had a panic attack, but she tried to play it cool. She asked how long it would take to unfreeze the account, and I shrugged, telling her it could be days or even weeks. The bank needed to verify all the recent transactions, including those suspicious cash withdrawals she had been making. The ones I noticed but never mentioned. Things got even more interesting when I got a call from the testing service about a sample from Ellie's purse. It wasn't poison, thank God, but it was prescription-strength sleeping pills. Crushed up, they were planning to drug me before staging an accident. The call came while Ellie was in the room. I pretended it was about a job application, but made sure to repeat test results and sample loudly enough for her to hear. I watched her face go pale. Meanwhile, my anonymous tip to Eduardo's workplace was starting to make waves. He sent me a panicked text asking if Ellie had mentioned anything about his work situation. I acted clueless, but later I overheard Ellie on the phone with him. She was talking about an internal review and how he needed to stay calm. My hidden cameras picked up everything. I heard her pacing around, telling him they needed to put everything on hold. That was when things took a major turn. I accidentally left my laptop open again, this time with an email draft to a divorce lawyer visible. It detailed all my suspicions about Ellie's affair with Eduardo, including the life insurance policy and the mysterious powder. It made it seem like I was gathering evidence, but I hadn't actually sent it yet. To make things worse, I accidentally left my phone's location sharing feature on and went to meet my real lawyer, making sure the location showed I was at a law office. When I got home, Ellie was in full damage control mode. She made my favorite dinner, suggested we watch a sci-fi movie I'd been wanting to see, and even initiated sex for the first time in months. All the while, her phone kept buzzing with texts she was clearly trying to ignore. Eduardo was in full panic mode, no doubt. The next day, I sat Ellie down and calmly told her I knew about her and Eduardo, though I only mentioned the affair, not the murder plot. I said I'd seen the texts and noticed the pattern of him visiting when I wasn't around. I told her I wanted a divorce. Her reaction wasn't what I expected. She admitted to the affair, but swore it was over. She claimed Eduardo had been pressuring her for money and threatening to tell me everything unless she paid up. She said she had been trying to end things for weeks, crying, begging, and painting herself as the victim while blaming Eduardo for everything. Not a word about the murder plan, just that he was the villain. I nodded along, told her I needed time to think, and asked her to stay with her sister for a few days. She reluctantly agreed. The moment she left, I sent Eduardo a carefully edited recording of Ellie from my hidden cameras. I only included the parts where she talked about him being unstable and threatening her, making it look like she had completely thrown him under the bus. His response was a barrage of furious texts, calling her every name imaginable. He claimed she was the one who came up with the whole plan and promised him they'd split everything 50-50 once it was done. He didn't mention murder explicitly, but it was close enough. I saved every message. While they were busy imploding, I executed the financial part of my plan. I filed for divorce, citing infidelity with evidence, and my lawyer helped me secure temporary orders freezing most of our assets. I changed the locks on the house, and legally, my name is now the only one on the deed. I also cut off Ellie's access to what little remained in our joint accounts. Eduardo's situation deteriorated even faster after an ethics investigation uncovered some shady dealings, and he was suspended pending review. His ex-wife, hearing rumors about him and Ellie, filed for a modification of their divorce settlement, claiming he had hidden assets. The whole house of cards was collapsing, but watching them self-destruct didn't feel as satisfying as I thought it would. Sure, there's satisfaction in seeing justice play out, but there's also this hollow feeling. 8 years of marriage reduced to this toxic endgame. Some nights, I still wake up wondering how I never saw the signs earlier. About a week after Ellie left, the voice messages started. The first few were angry. How could I do this to her? She had no proof, and she'd get what she deserved in the divorce. Then the messages shifted. They became desperate and pleading. She couldn't access any money. Her sister was kicking her out, and Eduardo was threatening her. Could she please just come home to talk? I saved every message, watching them get more desperate without responding. The turning point came 3 days ago when I was clearing out some of Ellie's things and found a notebook hidden behind the dresser. Inside, there were detailed notes about my schedule, my habits, lists of accidents that had happened naturally, research on life insurance payouts and waiting periods, and most damning of all, a step-by-step plan for the fishing trip, including Eduardo's role in making sure I didn't come back that night. I texted Ellie, asking her to meet me at a coffee shop the next day. I chose a public place with lots of witnesses. When she arrived, she looked terrible. She hadn't slept, clearly stressed, and immediately fell into the victim routine. I let her talk for 5 minutes before everything changed. She paused for breath And that's when I slid the notebook across the table toward her. The look on her face, it was like watching a system malfunction in real time. A total shutdown. She stammered, trying to explain it away, claiming it was all fiction for a writing class. I just stared at her, silently. Then I told her I knew everything from the start. The power outage, the wine glasses, the entire murder plot. I laid out her choices. Option 1. I hand everything over to the police. The recordings, the notebook, Eduardo's text practically confessing to the scheme. Or option 2. She signs the divorce papers I brought with me. No negotiation. She'd leave with nothing but her personal items and her car. No alimony, no house equity, no shared assets. She'd have to leave town for good. She sat frozen, staring at the notebook for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she asked in a small voice if I'd really known from the beginning. When I nodded, she burst into laughter, not the happy kind, but that broken, close-to-tears kind. She told me she thought I was too stupid to notice, that I'd been the perfect target for an easy insurance payout. Hearing that should have stung, but it didn't. It felt like nothing at all. It was like watching someone talk about a stranger. The woman I married, she wasn't even a shadow of the person I thought I knew. Without another word, she signed the papers right there, didn't even bother reading them. She asked if I would really go to the police if she didn't comply, and the look I gave her said it all. As she walked out, she turned back once, asking how long I'd known. I told her, since the power outage. She shook her head and muttered something about how different things could have been, then walked out. As for Eduardo, he didn't get off lightly. I sent him screenshots of the notebook pages with a simple message. Leave town or I'd take this to the police. He didn't even respond, just listed his house for sale the next day. Now, the divorce papers are filed. The house is quiet. Their lives are in ruins, while I'm not great, but I'm intact, moving forward. For those of you curious about the powder, I got the full test results. Enough sedatives to knock out a horse. It would have been easy for them to stage a fishing accident, just as they planned. Ellie's staying with a friend 2 towns over. She's broke, with no job, her reputation destroyed after I casually mentioned the affair to our mutual friends. The murder plot stays between us for now. Eduardo's house is up for sale. His career is in tatters. His ex-wife is reopening their divorce case. Karma's a bitch. As for me, I'm seeing a therapist. Turns out discovering your wife of 6 years wanted you dead can leave some scars. I've even been on a couple of dates. Nothing serious. Just enjoying a reminder that normal people still exist. But I'm not the same person I was before all this. I'm more cautious now, less trusting, but also stronger in ways I never saw coming. Like an engine rebuilt after a catastrophic failure. Different parts, same function, maybe even running better than before. Some of you have asked if I regret not going to the police. Sometimes I do, but trial would have been messy, public, with no guarantee they'd serve any real time. This way, they lost everything that mattered to them. Money, reputation, security, while I get to rebuild quietly. Life's strange. One power outage changed everything. If I'd come home at the usual time that day, I could be dead now, floating face down in a lake, while Ellie collected my life insurance. Instead, here I am, sitting in my house, having a beer, and sharing this final update with you, the strangers who've been unexpectedly supportive through this whole mess. Sometimes the best revenge isn't an elaborate plan. It's just making people face the consequences of their actions while you walk away intact. So that's it. Story over. No more updates after this one. Time to close this chapter and start something new.